Here's a sample of what you'll hear on this episode of Natural Health Matters.
It really all starts in the gut. It's fascinating. And I think we're going to see this more and more. And humans have known this for a very long time. You can see in our diets things like fermented foods and all that kind of thing. They've been around for a long time. And now we're getting tangible evidence, through modern science, and it's happening so rapidly. But we're seeing the benefits of this more and more, and just how integral the gut is to the whole body system.
Welcome to the Natural Health Matters podcast, where it's all about maximizing your health potential so that you can pursue the abundant life more effectively. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 43. This episode is brought to you by Earthing Grounding Products. There's a reason why everyone loves a barefoot walk on the beach. God designed our bodies to make barefoot contact with the earth on a regular basis. We weren't designed to wear rubber-soled shoes all the time. You can enjoy the health benefits of being grounded with the earth indoors by using Earthing products. Go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources, and click on the Earthing logo and see what a difference getting grounded can make in your health and vitality. Today we have Sarah Spann on the show. Sarah's work allows her to fulfill what she's most passionate about, which is ultimately empowering people to be at their best health physically and emotionally so they can thrive in their personal and professional lives. Sarah, welcome to Natural Health Matters.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking the time. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you develop this passion? How did you get into gut health and mental emotional health and counseling? So just tell us a little bit about your background story.
Yeah, sure. So for me, my health problems started when I was a teenager. I was very underweight. My stomach was a mess. I was always sick. I was getting sick as well, colds and flus a lot. I was exhausted all the time. And as I sort of got older to sort of 18, 19, it got really bad. But no one could really figure out what was going on. I went to doctors. I tried different diets. I did all this stuff, and I was just getting sicker and sicker. So finally, when I was 23, a doctor screened me for celiac disease. And I had it took a while. And I had it came up positive. So I went and had the endoscopy, which is where they take a sample of your small intestine to confirm whether celiac disease exists. And It was there. And apparently, so celiac disease, for people who don't know, it's when the protein gluten attacks the walls of the small intestine, which is your absorption center. And essentially what it does, the small intestine has these finger-like sort of villi on it, which help with absorption. And the protein gluten causes the body to attack itself and destroy those finger-like projections. And essentially it means you don't actually absorb anything from your food. So I was eating, but I was getting nothing for a very long time, which explained why I was so sick.
Of course.
Yeah. So then from that, it was actually a long recovery process because there was a lot of gut healing and things like that to do, which I didn't know about in the beginning. The gluten-free diet helped a lot, but there was more to be done that's not communicated straight away. You sort of find out these things as you go along. And this is what led me to study nutritional medicine. Essentially, I was trying to figure out how to heal.
Yeah.
And so through all that, it's been a long process since that time to understand that, yes, there was diet and supplement things I needed to do and specific gut healing work. But along with that, there's a big emotional piece. Emotional health significantly impacts gut health. And that was probably my biggest discovery. And that was when things all started to fall into place for me.
Well, that's interesting because my story is a little similar. Although I don't have celiac, I had chronic Lyme disease. And when you have initial infection, if you get on the the right antibiotic for a couple of weeks, you can knock the thing out in 2, 3, 4 weeks. But if it becomes chronic, it becomes much more difficult to get rid of. So I knew as a naturopathic doctor and certified nutritional counselor, I was going to need more than the traditional advice. So that's what I started researching on what the spiritual component to health and the mental emotional component to health was. And that led me on an incredible journey. And I implemented those principles in my own life, and I beat the Lyme disease without antibiotics, without any medical intervention whatsoever. So we're on the same page with this mental emotional connection for sure. It's really huge.
Yeah.
So you seem very passionate. I know you've got some great testimonials on your website. I listened to a couple of them, and people are just singing your praises. And I think that's great. You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you.
This is the question I have for you. There seems to be a lot of conflicting advice about gut health and nutrition. Can you explain why that is?
Certainly. There's a lot of conflicting information because everyone's so different. So a diet might work wonders for one person, but it might make the other person entirely sick. And a good example of that is the keto diet, the ketogenic diet. So for one person, they might feel amazing on it. On another person, it might give them diarrhea and make them feel horrible.
Right.
And it's because our bodies are so different. Our guts are different. The balance of gut bacteria that we all have in our microbiome, that's different. And it does come back to that emotional component as well. So if someone is feeling very good emotionally, feeling very strong emotionally and energetically, and then they go on a healthy diet, it's much more likely to have a really good effect. Whereas someone who's in a lot of emotional distress and they go on a healthy diet, they will feel a bit better, of course, but they still won't feel good because there's this other piece. And so when I say we're all different, I do mean like biochemically and in our genetic makeup and all that kind of thing. But I also mean we're all going through different things. We've had different pasts, we've had different histories, we've got different belief systems, and all of this ties into how your body processes and digests and absorbs that food, how well you get the nutrients from that food, and how well the healing processes are actually happening in the body as well.
Have you ever read the book, The Metabolic Typing Diet by Bill Walcott?
No.
No, it kind of sounded like you had some of those phrases in there, but it's an excellent book on biochemical individuality, which is what you're just talking about. And one of the things he mentions in there is there was a Roman philosopher who said, his name is Lucretius, and he said, one man's food is another man's poison. And modern science is catching up with that and say, yeah, he was really onto something there, because the exact same nutrient can have a beneficial effect on one person, have no effect on a second one, and have a detrimental effect on the third. And it's the same nutrient, but we have different people. And that explains why there's so much conflicting information out there regarding diet. Because if you take 100 people, and for instance, it's one of the things I mentioned in my book is there was a study done on coffee. And one of the set of researchers said, well, coffee is pro-inflammatory. And then another study came out just a few months later and said, no, coffee is anti-inflammatory. So how can they both be right? Well, the answer is biochemical individuality. They had different people in their studies. They could take the exact same process and duplicate it with a different set of people, and they're going to have different results. And that's biochemical individuality. People don't really want to hear that. They want to hear well, there's got to be a one size fits all. Just tell me what it is. But it doesn't exist. We're all individuals. God created us all unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And that this is the thing, right? Because you can go and find research to support anything you want.
Sure.
If you want proof that coffee is anti-inflammatory, you'll find it. If you want proof it's harmful, you'll find it. It all exists. It's all out there. And as you say, it's because of that biochemical individuality, because we're all different. And depending on who does the tests, who they do the trials on, who the actual researchers are as well, because human bias does come into it a little bit. As much as we can try and separate it, it leaks in a little bit. and your own bias based on what you're looking for. So it's really,
Sure.
yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it can get complicated. And that's why if you've got a serious health challenge, you're probably better off hiring a professional who's been down this road before with other people that can kind of guide you, not tell you what to do, but give you solid recommendations, give you a starting point, give you a way to start experimenting with foods, and take it as a process, a step at a time. That's usually the way it works.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So, Sarah, talk a little bit about how important gut health is to overall health and well-being.
Well, it's fundamental, really. Everything we're seeing that everything is coming back to the gut. Chronic disease, you can link autoimmune disease, obesity, diabetes, thyroid problems, even menstrual problems in women, depression, anxiety, all of this is coming back to the gut. We're really seeing that the composition of our microbiome, so the makeup of the bacteria that live in the gut, have a huge impact on biochemical processes in the body, on how well you digest and absorb your food, on how much energy you store, on your mood, on your emotions, on your sleep. It really all starts in the gut. It's fascinating, and I think we're going to see this more and more. And humans have known this for a very long time. You can see in our diets things like fermented foods and all that kind of thing. They've been around for a long time. And now we're getting tangible evidence, through modern science, and it's happening so rapidly. But we're seeing the benefits of this more and more, and just how integral the gut is to the whole body system.
Yeah. A lot of experts are calling the gut the second brain now, right? Because there's so many nerve endings and neural connections that are made in the gut that affect our physiology, but also our mental emotional component. They're calling the gut the second brain, which is kind of weird, but it's really, there's a lot of truth there. Mm-hmm. I'd like to talk a little bit about the connection between our mental emotional state and the gut health. We've all heard the phrase, I'm worried sick over this. Most of the time what people are referring to is something going on in their gut. Maybe it's IBS, maybe it's diarrhea, maybe it's, whatever, but maybe it's bloating. So it's very common. Could you speak to the emotional connection between the gut and our emotions?
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Yeah, you're right. People often say, I'm worried sick over this, or I feel sick when something emotional is happening, because you feel it in your gut.
Yeah.
That kick in the gut sensation, that sinking in the stomach. And as you say, it's due to all those nerve endings, and the gut has its own nervous system called the enteric nervous system. And essentially that the gut and the brain are in constant communication by what's called the vagus nerve, which is a really long nerve that stems from the brain, and it's kind of like a highway connecting many pieces of the body to the brain, but in particular for this conversation, the gut. And the information is going back and forth all the time. What happens when you feel upset, you often feel it in your gut first, and then it's hard to say whether your brain registers it first or your gut registers it first, but either way, both of them feel it.
Right.
So that's one piece. Now, the other piece to this is when you're stressed, when you're in a state of distress, your body goes into flight or fight mode, which essentially means it's preparing you to either run or fight. So it's going to shut down processes that aren't important to save your life at this time, such as digesting your food, making immune cells, making reproductive hormones, that kind of thing. And it's going to focus the energy on what it believes you need right now, which is to stay alive. So it sends blood to your arms and legs to get you ready to run or fight. Your cognitive functioning slows down a little bit, which is why when you're stressed, you might find yourself forgetful and things like that.
Right.
And from a gut perspective, your gut stops secreting digestive juices. It stops contracting. In fact, your body wants to get rid of food at this time. It doesn't want to absorb it because it wants to make you lighter. So that's often why you might feel sick or get diarrhea when you're upset.
One of the things I'd like to tell people, sorry to interrupt, but I thought this is something I wanted to share, and that is a lot of people will say grace before their meal. And there actually is some really good health and wellness implications as a result of that, because when you're in a grateful state, you have a very hard time being in that sympathetic, jacked up state that you're talking about. So when you get in a grateful state, that is the ideal condition where the parasympathetic nervous system will be dominant, and you secrete more digestive juices, and your body is preparing itself for the meal by you getting in a mental state of gratefulness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's beautiful. I actually do that myself, and I encourage my clients to do it as well. If not grace, at least a gratitude practice before a meal. So just being grateful for the food that you're about to receive. Even that's enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you could just be thankful for the fact that somebody grew this potato, or somebody grew this, you name it, asparagus, and just be grateful for the fact that it's here and it's available.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. So, Sarah, one of the things that happens to a lot of people is when they go to the doctor, they have an infection, and it's especially abusive when they just have a viral infection like a cold, and the doctor prescribes antibiotics. And a lot of doctors just are, relying on these things too heavily. So talk about the problems that creates in our gut. The foundation of my approach to health is that we maximize our health potential by aligning our lives more fully with God's design for spirit, mind, and body. But what does God's design for our bodies actually look like? The answer to that question is, of course, multifaceted. However, God designed our bodies to make barefoot contact with the earth on a regular basis. Our bodies build up electrical energy. Everyone's seen how on a cold day, if you rub your feet on the carpet and then lightly touch someone on the skin, there'll be an electrical discharge from your fingertip to their body. The same thing happens on a much larger scale during a thunderstorm. Our body's energy is very subtle, and the trouble is, much of the energy that builds up in our bodies throughout the day is harmful to our health. We need to ground our bodies with the earth to help us reset our subtle energy rhythms. As an airline captain, I am keenly aware of this phenomena. Spending hours in a pressurized tube at 500 miles per hour is a highly efficient way to absorb harmful electromagnetic frequencies. EMFs are a big part of what causes jet lag. After a long day in the air, my body is full of harmful energies that need to be neutralized. Want to know how I fight back? I sleep on an earthing mattress pad, and I get grounded all night long. I find I sleep better, and I wake up more refreshed. These days, everyone's bombarded with EMS from cell phones, Wi-Fi. Even electrical current from our home appliances is harmful. When we make contact with the earth, we naturally discharge or neutralize these harmful energies. That's why a barefoot walk on the beach is universally adored by everyone. To a lesser degree, we can do the same thing by walking barefoot on the grass, especially if it's wet. It would just take longer. The trouble is, in this world we live in, it's just not practical to go barefoot most of the time, and who has the time anyway? The folks over at Earthing have solved this dilemma for us. They've got all kinds of products that make it easy to get grounded when we're indoors. If you'd like to start fighting back against this serious threat to your health, go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources. That's DavidSandstrom.com/resources. Use my affiliate link and click on the Earthing logo and see what a difference getting grounded with the earth can make in the way you feel. Now let's get back to the show. And the doctor prescribes antibiotics. And a lot of doctors just are, relying on these things too heavily. So talk about the problems that creates in our gut.
Sure. So essentially, antibiotics, they kill bacteria, right? And your gut is full of bacteria. They don't discriminate. They're going to come in and they're going to kill maybe the bacteria they're looking for, but they're going to kill a whole bunch of good bacteria as well that you actually need to produce neurotransmitters like serotonin, which helps your mood, and to digest and absorb your food, and to keep these chemical processes in the body going. So what happens when you take antibiotics is it all gets wiped out. It's kind of like a bomb hits, and they all just disappear. So the trouble with, and I understand, sometimes antibiotics are necessary to save lives, and that's, of course.
Sure.
But as you mentioned, there is this problem where we've got this overuse of antibiotics. So what's happening is our microbiomes are being wiped out every time that you take antibiotics, leaving you more susceptible to become ill again, because your gut bacteria also, 70% of the immune system is in the gut. And so by taking antibiotics, it impacts the ability of your immune system to kind of bounce back as well. So it's kind of, there's a lot of flow-on effects from doing it. So if you do have to take antibiotics, it's really important that you do that gut recovery work afterwards, with probiotics, prebiotics, and, ideally working with someone to help you rebuild that microbiome back up. And considering as well whether it's necessary, as you say, antibiotics focus on bacteria. They don't do much for a virus. It's right. Bacterial infections that they're good for. So if you have a virus, they're not going to do much in that sense.
You're absolutely right. So one of the things I'd like to add to that, Sarah, is that antibiotics are indiscriminate. They kill all the bacteria. Well, we have a lot of beneficial bacteria in the gut. One of their functions is that they keep things like fungus in check. So when our good bacteria count is down after a course of antibiotics, the undesirable microscopic organisms such as fungus will have a heyday. There's nothing to come after them and keep them from proliferating. And now we have a problem because our gut dysbiosis, right, where we have an imbalance in our systems. We need some fungus, but it gets overgrown after a course of antibiotics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, because it takes up the empty space.
Yeah.
And the good bacteria have nothing to live off.
Right. Nature abhors a vacuum. Something's gonna fill that space. Yeah.
Right.
So let's say you've got a problem. You took a bunch of antibiotics last year or whatever it was, and now you have digestive issues going on. What can you do about it?
Well, honestly, the best way forward is to really work with someone, because it's so hard to be objective when it's you. And in fact, I did have a client recently where a few years ago, she had been on antibiotics for a couple of years due to skin stuff. And ever since that time, she's had a lot of digestive problems. So with her, it was a lot about rebuilding her microbiome. And we did that by removing the foods she was reacting to, feeding her gut with good, healthy fibrous foods, giving her good probiotics based on her situation, using prebiotics as well to build up that fiber and give the good gut bacteria something to live off. And
I just wanted to interrupt and say, for those that don't know, most do, but for those that don't know, what is a probiotic?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to go into that a bit more. I realized I was rambling there without explaining.
That's okay.
So I like to think of the gut as a garden. And in there, you've got your flowers, you've got your weeds, you've got bugs and birds and all kinds of things that come to a garden soil. And so if your soil is the base of the gut, the probiotic is like planting a flower, the flower being the bacteria, directly in the gut. So you have your probiotics, you plant your flowers in the gut. Now, the issue is, if you think of a garden, when you plant flowers, you don't water them, the soil's not healthy, the flowers die, right?
Yes.
So the prebiotics are like the fertilizer. They come in and fertilize the soil, they water the flowers in a sense, and keep that population going. So that's kind of the difference between the two.
I love that metaphor because it really is an ecosystem down there, right? I mean, we have living organisms going on. They're living and dying. They're creating new cells, making neural connections. There's all kinds of things going on down there. Mm-hmm. It's a living ecosystem.
Sure is.
Yeah. One of the things I like to do is eat fermented foods. You mentioned that a moment ago. And, before the invention of the refrigerator, people had to ferment their foods. If they grew their vegetables during the growing season, the only way they could make them last into the winter was to ferment them. So, talk about that process. Do you do that yourself?
The only fermenting I've made sauerkraut a couple of times, and I make yogurt a fair bit, coconut yogurt, which I really love to make myself.
Cool.
It can be a bit intimidating at first. When you first do it, you're worried you're going to poison yourself or something.
Right.
But then once you do it, it's see, there are so many benefits of fermenting your own food because you have so much more bacteria available to you. You have the fact that it's fresh, you've done it right then. It hasn't been, kept on a supermarket under bright lights. And there's something really fun and grounding about doing it yourself as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, so many benefits.
Absolutely. I've been fermenting my vegetables for years, and I love doing it. I have this, basically it looks like a crock pot. I forget the name of it, but I'll put it in the show links to the show. And it has a water seal on the top. So when you put your vegetables inside, you fill this, it looks like a moat around the top of the pot, and you fill that with water. Then you put the lid on so that as the bacteria multiply, it creates gas, and the bubbles will escape through the water. You hear bubbles coming out, but the lid keeps a watertight seal and therefore dramatically decreases the chances of you having a bad batch, if you do it right. So you have to have a culture starter. What do you use for a culture starter when you do your fermentation?
So with the yogurt, I actually use, it's actually a product called Probioform, and it's a fermented food supplement, but it acts really well at, it ferments very quickly, essentially. So when I make yogurt, I only need to leave it out. Well, it's hot here as well, but I only need to leave it out for about 48 hours and then it's done. And so, yeah, that's quite a good product, that Probioform. I just add 2 tablespoons of that to my yogurt or my yogurt base, and it ferments it very quickly. It's very good at eating up the excess sugar as well. And yeah, that's what I use.
Excellent. I used to use a company called you're in Australia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What part?
Brisbane. It's on the east side in Queensland.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, here in the States, there was a company called Body Ecology Diet, and they used to have a great culture starter, but I can't find it anymore. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. So what I do is I'll take a quart of plain whole fat yogurt, and I'll put some cheesecloths over the top of a bowl and pour the yogurt into that cheesecloth. And overnight, the whey will separate into the bowl and the solids will remain in the cheesecloth. And you basically have cream cheese in what's left in the cheesecloth. And you have the liquid whey, which is loaded with the beneficial bacteria. So I use that as a starter for my vegetables. And I'll make a brine. And one of these days, I'm going to probably do a whole podcast episode on this. I make a brine, mix the vegetables in, fresh cabbage or onions or peppers or whatever I feel like. Daikon radish is a great one to put in there. Maybe some habanero peppers or jalapenos, because the intenseness of the pepper or the onions calms down with the fermentation process, and it adds some great flavor. So I let it sit on the counter for about 3 or 4 days. Then I put them in mason jars, and they'll last in the fridge for 6 months or more.
Amazing.
Yeah. And they're a great side dish. I have them with almost every meal. You can eat them with grains. You can eat them with meat. You can eat them with vegetables. They just go as an excellent side dish with almost anything.
Fantastic. I might have to get into that.
Yeah, I'll put a link to that, to the crock pot that I use. I forget what it's actually called, but I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Great.
All right. So let's get back for a moment before we wrap things up. What are some of the ways people can reduce their mental, emotional stress that will benefit their gut health?
Yes. Now, the gratitude or grace practice before a meal is a fantastic one. Being present with your food is the number one way I feel to have a quick impact on reducing the impact of stress on digestion. And the reason for that is because when you're in the present, you can't focus on what's stressing you because you're too busy being focused in the moment and focusing on the meal. So taking your time to chew your food and really breathing and being with your meal. And I know this is difficult, and your mind, especially when you first start doing it, your mind's probably going to want to wander away, and the practice is just coming back. And as a starting point, being present with your meal, I think, is a fantastic way to reduce the amount of discomfort you have after a meal, the amount of bloating, the amount of cramping, because your food's actually being digested instead of fermenting in the colon. So that's a really great way. And then I guess the more holistic and broader way, or some of the ways, are stress management generally. So working on keeping your body, it's not that you can't ever go into flight or fight state, that sort of sympathetic state, but doing a practice daily to bring yourself back into that parasympathetic rest and digest state, whether that's yoga, meditation, walking, listening to music, reading, whatever it is. It's about prevention rather than cure, and bringing a mindfulness practice into every day. And I think having a look at what's stressing you out as well. So understanding where the stress in your life is really coming from, and getting to know about yourself a bit in a non-judgmental way, and bringing some more compassion to yourself and all that kind of thing. Watching where you're judging yourself, and seeing if you can be a little more compassionate instead.
I love it. That is all great advice. I think what you're trying to say, I'm just going to try to summarize what you just said, is be more mindful. Take a moment before you eat, assessing where you're at emotionally. And if you have something stressful, see if you can't just put it aside you don't have to solve all your problems before you eat, but can you put that aside for a few minutes? I think one of the things that helps with that is to sit down with family and eat together. Have a conversation, get the focus off of yourself and your problems and on to someone else. Ask them some questions about how their day went or what's going on in their life. That can do wonders to reducing your stress level and like we're talking about, that fight or flight sympathetic dominance, which is detrimental to digestion, nutrient absorption, and health in general. And then, of course, one of the things that I can't let this go without saying this is the Bible has some advice on what to meditate on. And meditation is a great practice, but I would contend that when we meditate on the Word of God, it has the most benefit. And one of the verses I love is Proverbs chapter 4, verse 20 through 22. My son, give attention to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Do not let them depart from your sight. Keep them in the midst of your heart, for they are life to those who find them, and health to all their body. I like to read that verse before I eat, and I read it frequently throughout the day once in a while, because I need to get grounded once in a while in that principle.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. And I agree. I do believe that we all need some kind of faith practice, whatever it is. It's very individual, but it's very hard to go through life in fear and distrusting and believing you're on your own and feeling like everything is just coming down on you and not being able to see a way out. I think that faith is one of the strongest ways to help, especially in those times where you do feel alone. Knowing that you're not ever truly alone is, it certainly helped me a lot. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Me too. You know, knowing that God is out there, He's sovereign, He's in control. We don't have to be in control of all this. We're just fooling ourselves if we think we can be. And we can just turn things over and say, you know what, I'm going to let God handle that. You know, I'm going to let God handle this political crisis. I'm going to let God handle the earthquake in that distant land, that I'm powerless to do anything about. You know, just offer it up to Him and live our lives as best we can. And there's some great advice there for enjoying more internal peace when we can practice that on a regular basis. Yes,
internal peace is beautiful. And I guess just back on the meditation, just to add, if anyone's feeling overwhelmed with meditation, honestly, all you need to do is set a timer for 5 minutes and just focus on your breathing as a starting point. That's all you need to do. That's meditating.
You could do that. And that's definitely a step in the right direction. I would add, meditate on some, a meaningful verse or a meaningful piece of some wisdom literature that might, be meaningful to you. We can all find those things online. It's pretty easy to find them these days if you're looking. Oh,
definitely.
All right, Sarah. Well, is there anything else you wanted to cover?
I'd just like to say, health is never a one-track process. Health is a culmination of a lot of things because we are human. We have physical, emotional, energetic, and beyond bodies. And health is about looking at all those pieces of ourselves and remembering that we're whole and addressing us as a whole rather than trying to cut us into piece by piece. And I think that's what health's all about.
I'm glad you mentioned energetic. It's my contention that we are a spirit, we have a mind, and we live in a body. And there is a interconnected relationship between the three components to a human being. And part of that interconnectedness and the interdependence is energetic. So can you speak to that for just a minute?
I might actually refer to the research. There's a lot of research being done by HeartMath Institute, and they're sort of into energy fields. And they're seeing that humans do have an energetic field around us. And I mean, we can feel this in other people, right? You can pick up vibes on other people and all that kind of thing. You feel their energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess from an energetic perspective, as much as, your cells are spinning all the time. They're doing these processes all the time. They're creating energy. Your heart's beating, your skin's shedding and regrowing, your hair's growing, your nails are growing. I think of energy as the force behind all that.
Yeah.
Because you don't think about it. You're not doing it. There's something else, some other intelligence that's driving all that. And that means that we do have an energy body. And so part of the work in health is keeping that clear, keeping it healed, keeping it balanced. And, there's so many ways to do that. But I think recognizing that yours is there and starting to learn about it, I think is a big part in health.
Yeah. I very much agree with that. You said a moment ago that each human being has their own energy, and that's true. My wife likes to watch football. If I were a huge football fan, we'd have some great weekends, but my wife watches more football than I do. But football has been very, very different this season with close to empty stands or empty stands. When you're lacking those people in the stands, there's something missing. You can tell. So they add sounds on the TV broadcast to make it sound like there's some people in the stands, but there isn't. And you could tell there's something missing. When the broadcaster is down there, the commentator before the big game, before the Super Bowl, let's say, and the stadium's full of 80, 90,000 people. And he says, the feeling on this field is electric. You can feel the energy down here. They really mean that. It's true. When you take that energy that each person has, times it by 90,000, you can literally feel that energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's probably important given the current sort of pandemic that the world's in, because as much as you can feel that electric energy, you also feel the energy of fear.
Absolutely.
And so I really believe that if we all tend to our own energy and, focus on our fear and transforming it into trust, that radiates out. Just as fear radiates out, so does love. And that's a big part of health too.
Absolutely. I want to make one more point before we wrap it up. And for people that are skeptical about this energetic component, here's what I like to say to them is, if two people were having a heated argument in a room and you didn't hear anything, and you opened the door and walked in a moment of silence, would you be able to tell there was something wrong? Would you be able to tell they were arguing? And you're nodding your head, yes. And most people would say,
yes.
Absolutely, I could tell. Well, if they weren't talking, how do you know? You can feel it, because that heated argument will create an energy in the room that we can actually sense. And it's my contention that we should, not that we're going to understand all this. We're a long way from understanding it all, but we should be aware of it and try to create an environment, like, as you said, where we're sharing more love than we are stress with other people. And it'll come back to us. I think it's a huge point, but it's a little hard to get a handle on.
Oh, yeah. And I think that might be part of it as well, letting go of trying to understand it.
Yeah. People want to know it all. Well, we can try, but I don't think this side of heaven we're going to understand it all.
No.
How could people get a hold of you?
Yep. So the best way to get in touch with me is head to my website, which is sarahspan.net. So sarahspan.net. And there you can learn all about me. I've got a free download to help you get started in your gut health journey. You can also find me on Facebook, Sarah Span. I do have a Facebook group called Mindful Medicine, and that's where we work on bringing that mindfulness we've been talking about into everyday life.
Excellent.
So that's a lot of fun in that group. Yeah, and you can also, there's also my book, Mind the Gut, which goes into a lot of what we spoke about today, that holistic component to health, healing your gut from all angles. And there's a lot of activities and sort of step-by-step processes for you to actually implement as you go. So that's a wonderful book if you're looking to, if you've got any sort of digestive issues, that's a wonderful book to help you move through.
Excellent.
And yeah, and I'm also on YouTube as The Gut Kitchen, and we've got some delicious gut-friendly recipes if that's what you're interested in.
All right. Very good. You're in a lot of places, a lot of pans in the fire.
Yeah, I'm around.
That's great. All right, Sarah. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time. It's great meeting you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Sarah Span. She brought a lot of really great information on gut health, and gut health is so foundational to all of what we do in our health and wellness journey. If you enjoyed this episode and you feel like you got something out of it, I would appreciate it if you'd share it with your friends. Go to my website, davidsandstrom.com, and this is episode number 43. And on the show notes page, I have some social media share links that you could share with your friends. Please don't forget, this episode was brought to you by Earthing Grounding Products. If you'd like to start cooperating more fully with God's design for your body and start enjoying all the health benefits of being grounded with the earth on a regular basis, go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources, and click on the Earthing logo and see what a difference getting grounded with the earth can make in your vitality. Please know this. I won't put anything on my recommended resources page that I haven't thoroughly researched, 100% believe in, and I use personally. You can express your appreciation for the show by using my affiliate links on the resources page to make a purchase. You won't pay any more, and my affiliate partners share a small commission with me. For more, go to davidsandstrom.com. In the show notes for each episode, you'll find links to all the resources that were mentioned, as well as a full transcript with timestamps that you can download for free. In addition, I always include a content upgrade with each show, which is a free download that is designed to help you go deeper with that subject. Once again, thank you for listening, and I'll talk with you next week. Be blessed.